And welcome back to another episode of the Geek Centurions as we talk about the final episode of Halo. Paramount Plus's most popular show, I guess. That's the only way I guess I can put that down as.
I mean, I don't know if you could even say that.
It has gotten a lot of negativity.
I mean,
in the last few episodes.
yeah. I mean,
It started off with great potential.
yeah. The Halo show. It's the final episode, the ninth episode. We definitely get an ending for this season because they did say.
And remember, they've already greenlit season 2.
Yeah, before they finished the first season. So I mean, if anything, I guess that just shows whether the people at Paramount, I guess, were just like, yeah, sure, that's
I can already see the money he makes.
Yeah, this is definitely a show.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I guess.
Okay, let's start off. Do you think it's one of the worst video game adaptations in the most recent years?
I don't know. It's hard for me to say that because whenever I think of bad video game adaptations, I think back to like the Resident Evil movies. Heck, that new Monster Hunter, I'm pretty sure was pretty mediocre.
Basically, any movie with Mila Djokovic. Video game movie with Mila.
Paul W.S. Anderson or whatever his name is.
Yeah. What's that?
Weibo video game movies, yeah, they're pretty bad. One could argue that the Mortal Kombat movie that came out like a year or two ago, not as great as the first ones they made, which says something.
Not as bad as Annihilation.
Not as bad as Annihilation, but I'm gonna be honest, they kind of share a bit of a similar tone to me in terms of a bit of writing. You know, they add some changes that you kind of just go, why? Why would you do that? If you don't know what I'm talking about for the new Mortal Kombat movie that came out, I think it was last year. Yeah, it was definitely last year. I think one of the bigger changes was one, adding a brand new character as like the main lead, and two, the fact that like they all get powers because they get branded or whatever or something like that, and it's just like, why? But more to the point, yeah, let's jump into this last episode, and
we can go further in as to,
and then we can give our thoughts of the series as a whole, because there's
a lot to talk about.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about. So this final episode sort of picks up where we left off with Chief coming back, waking up from that whole explosion thing that rocked the base. He sort of like essentially tries to go after McKee, and McKee's like,
fuck you.
Yeah, she's like, I'm gonna get to that Covenant spaceship, fuck you. Meanwhile,
everyone else is hunting down Halsey, and the rest of the Spartans are like, no, but we were ordered by Halsey. Wait, you don't understand. She did X, Y, and Z to us.
Yeah, like, they have like,
I don't believe you.
They're all at like a Mexican standoff, you know? It's like, I gotta bring you in, Chief, dead or alive. It's like, listen to me. Halsey did bad things to us. You know, she kidnapped us, brainwashed us, such and such. He's like, shut up, you're lying. And
basically, the whole, crux of what was going on in this whole season, the abduction, the Spartan 2 program.
Yeah, the very dark side of the Spartan 2 program gets sort of fully revealed to you, at least the Spartans. Even Captain Keyes shows up to like sort of like, yeah, it's true. I helped out. We did such and such things, and and it's all true. And sort of the Spartans, Ritz and Vanek, sort of just stand down, and they join with Chi to get to McKee while Kai tries to stop Halsey from leaving the ship. Like having her ship leave off planet. They get, they're too late to stop McKee because she's already in the Covenant ship. And meanwhile, Kai She kills one of the that weird doctor
Oh,
assistant.
thank God.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I've never been so happy to see something in my life.
Yeah, because he's definitely weird.
Okay, we'll talk about him a little bit more.
Yeah. But Halsey manages to get into an escape pod, leaves. The ship crashes. Kai survives. But yeah, it's generally
Best
sort of
girl
like
survives.
yeah, yeah. I guess you can call it that. Yeah, and it's sort of more like now there's two missions. Spartans find McKee, stop the them joining the artifacts and fighting Halo. Meanwhile, Captain Keyes and the rest of the UNSC are like going on a manhunt to find Halsey.
Mm-hmm. And so, like, that the manhunt's pretty obvious. They find her, they interrogate her, basically ask her, "Hey, like, did you think what you did was wrong?" But it's like, I mean, I don't think I'm wrong.
I mean, yeah, like, heck, they even like. I'm assuming they were gonna execute her.
Because you gotta find a way to keep her hush hush.
Yeah, because like they felt like she's just too dangerous to be left alive.
Too dangerous. And so and so there's this moment where Chief and Cortana talk, and we find out that technically Cortana can take over Chief's body at any point in time.
I mean, yeah, like that's it's something that's been alluded to by Halsey. Like she wanted Cortana to eventually do that, so that they push each other forward together or something. It's her view of like evolving humanity or whatever.
Yeah.
And obviously Cortana through the course of it all just like kind of like she's like very like not against like she's very against it at this point. Where it's like I don't want to do that. What makes you guys human? That's what makes you guys special. And they have a bit of a bonding moment there, and they have to go through this weird weird spatial rift in space in order to get to the I guess the holy site where the Covenant prophets and all of them along with McKee are gonna join the artifacts, and she'll activate it and be able to find Halo and stuff. And and we get some pretty good fight scenes out of this. Heck, we even get like a proper rendition of the Halo theme.
I was gonna say that was pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I still am like weirded out whenever they do like first person action for the.
And you know what it is? It's not rendered so well.
Yeah, I think that's
what the whole fight was rendered really bad, and I feel really bad for the VFX artists who didn't have time to clean it all up. But it was probably the most like impressive looking with the budget.
Yeah, it definitely seems like it. I mean, heck, the environment they're in just feels like they're just in a video game. Which I mean, I don't know.
I mean, the way that place is designed, it looks very like a level you can see in Halo.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I mean, that's definitely a compliment in terms of design, but like the visual aspect doesn't look like you said. It's a bit rendered poorly. So it looks kind of off.
Well, yeah, and I think it's just this is where the budget keeps going into certain areas because while the rendering for certain moments, action scenes, especially even the beginning where Kai is trying to hunt down Halsey, it looks very like cartoonish.
Yeah.
There are the prophets who are like rendered the best out of all of them.
Yeah, like it seems like there's certain areas where the budget is put properly, and then other parts where it feels like it's a bit rushed.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's because they didn't give the show enough of a budget to like get all that stuff worked out, or what. I don't know. But point is, yeah. I mean, the fight scene's overall pretty impressive. It has a lot of decent action. It's just that some of the visual effects don't look that well.
Questionable camera work as well.
Yeah, it's questionable camera work as well. And yeah, they sort of have this whole fight, and meanwhile we sort of kind of cut back to the UNSC base, where Halsey's sort of in her interrogation room, and she starts having a seizure and stuff. It's like, what? How? What's going on here? And Miranda has a flashback to when they talked about like the Flash clones, and she has this realization of like, no, impossible. Like,
where is she?
Yeah, like. Like she makes the realization that this Halsey is a Flash clone, and the real Halsey has gotten away, and they don't know where she is.
She ran away. And I'm just like, how the. When the.
Yeah, like it opens up a potential like what the hell kind of moment. Like, granted, it's not like it's out of the realm of like it's not one of those like gotcha moments or whatever where it's like super like crazy insane plot twist or whatever for no reason. Because I mean the idea of like these Flash clones has been brought up multiple times. But more sort of like when did she have the time to just use the Flash clone and have it be in its place, take her place? Like what the hell? um, but yeah, it's definitely an interesting moment. But we come back to the fight. McKee activates the artifacts and sort of kind of knocks John out a little bit because he's like also like seeing like all these visions and stuff. And like the Spartans are getting messed up.
There's an army of fucking elites and
brutes and all this stuff. Like they're just charging at them, and while they have to hold up in the monument or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, the prophets are right there.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing that I don't know. It's like they kind of forget that like where they put the characters in the space because the prophets are like literally like hovering above the Spartans this entire time,
and they have guns.
Yeah, and it's like
weapons with projectiles.
Yes, that is what a gun is. Point is, they could have killed the prophets who are the head guys of the Covenant, and I mean not necessarily win the war, but definitely like
deal a major blow.
Deal a major blow in terms of the hierarchy. So it's a weird thing, but I
digress.
We'll get into that more as we give our thoughts about the show itself. But that is a thing that is happening, and in order for Chief to like wake up essentially from the vision thing, Kai kills McKee.
Oh no!
Yeah, and she's like, holy shit. Oh, I was like, oh, well, no.
I lost my girlfriend.
Yeah, and the Covenant, like, it was showing, like, the star map above them, and they're like, oh my god, like, we're gonna find out where Halo is, and then obviously it's incomplete. And the Prophet's like, get the demon, get Master Chief, because he also is able to activate the thing, and we'll need him to do that. However, Chief sort of, like, comes to the realization of like, all right, we got to get these artifacts, we got to get out of here, and Cortana's like, like we can't save the Spartans and also take the artifact because if you touch it, you're gonna like lose your mind again. And she sort of makes sort of the ultimate call of like, then you take over, Cortana. It's like, no, I won't want to do that. It's like, you have to. You're the only one that can do it. And sort of Chief like sort of like has this like kind of last stand, just like fighting these Covenant before eventually getting knocked out. And that's when Cortana takes over his body and just does a bunch of one-shotting of various enemies, uses the Pelican to like clear a landing zone.
Continue.
Yeah. She gets the artifact, the Spartans get out. I mean, obviously they're like, no, John, don't touch it. And then obviously it doesn't react, which, weirds out Kai. Obviously, they get on the ship. The Prophet's like, "Curse you, Master Chief!
Curse you, demon!"
Yeah, and they manage to get away. And we sort of get a bit of a exposition, kind of like ending, like monologue or whatever from Halsey, sort of just I guess writing about like, like humanity needs to evolve, and such and such. In the best way, I guess. I'm going to find out by going to Halo. I'm going to figure it out. Maybe through Halo we can evolve ourselves or whatever. And, obviously the UNSC's going to be hunting down Halsey at this point. Meanwhile, back on the ship, the Spartans are coming from the wounds and like battle scars and stuff like that. But mainly it's Kai just sort of like looking at it. She's like, Chief, are you in there?
No response.
No response. Looks at Kai, no response. But yeah, and that's sort of where this season ends. Um,
Wow.
yeah, it's an interesting ending.
It, yeah, it is. It totally is. And I'm not saying that as someone who like, oh, I hated this thing all the way through. No, I found it very enjoyable. It's serviceable, and I think this is where we're gonna get into our first discussion. This show, without it being called Halo, you wouldn't think it's Halo. And we talked about this in the last episode. It feels very generic sci-fi action show. And that's not what you want Halo to be. And a lot of the times the writing and the ideas that they have either isn't executed well, not or explored further, or it doesn't amount to much. And it's sad because this is if you are a fan of Halo, that's not what Halo is. And granted, we can talk about more about the fact that the showrunners never touched the games or from our understanding, any of the source material. And how involved 343 was. Maybe we don't know. Don't want to go into that, but we can. But it's very apparent that this was not a well thought out series. Um, the prime example for me is the whole Spartan 2 program, because and you and I talked about this. If you've never played Halo or you just played the games, right? If you never heard of Halo, or you just play the games, you just think it's action shooter, sci-fi man, says cool one-liners, and saves day, right? But the Spartan 2 program is probably one of the first instances of like one world building, but also just it establishes this idea of like what the Halo world is, the world of Halo is, right? Where you see this action movie man, and in reality he is a broken person, never had a childhood, went through so much stuff. It paints a really dark picture, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that for the most part, that is the big through line of the show. But you don't get anything out of that, right? You don't sense that. You're just like, oh, they did this to us. Oh, how tragic. Halsey, you lied to me. But like, there's no weight to it.
Yeah, it's definitely like, not to say like they weren't wrong in like trying to go down that route.
No, I think that's like the best thing to do, especially if you've never experienced Halo outside of, again, maybe the games or just a general knowledge of it.
Yeah, because the backstory of the Spartan 2 program is definitely is in the novels and stuff. And it is kind of how it goes through the show. Halsey finds various children that she feels are worthy candidates to be used in the Spartan 2 program. She kidnaps them, replaces them with Flash clones that die like after a couple of years or whatever. So that way there's like no paper trail, and then does various experiments on them so that they can be genetically altered, as well as like have various things installed in them so that they could be super soldiers essentially. And yeah, it's all kinds of messed up, and it isn't obviously it's not like super explored in the games. Like not until like Halo 4 do they even like mention sort of like the backstory of the Spartan 2 program. And with like some of the characters being like, yeah, no, Halsey, that was a bit messed up what you did there,
And she acknowledges like, yeah, it's messed up, but we did it for a purpose.
Yeah,
the ends justify the means kind of situation. And it's even more funny because we talked about this earlier, that the whole point, these big strong Spartan dudes and women were used to quell humans insurrections. They were the big space police.
Yeah. I mean, I think the idea, what they wanted to do with having them go straight up with the Spartan 2 program and like sort of like having it be revealed and all that stuff is to like give this sense of like making the UNSC a bit more morally gray instead of just the straight up good guys versus the
Mm-hmm.
bad guys, aliens. Granted, we don't get um like obviously like they don't do something like we're like, oh, maybe the Covenant's good. Actually, no, they're still clearly evil. I mean, in
Mm-hmm.
this episode where they're talking about like McKee's like, will I be able to go the Great Journey? The Prophet's like, yes, of course you will, Blessed One. And then behind her back's like, oh yeah, we're just totally gonna kill her. Yeah,
Oh
absolutely.
no, she won't survive.
Yeah, she's gonna die.
She's
Like,
gonna die.
we don't care.
We don't care.
As long as she
She's a
activates,
heathen.
yeah, as long as she activates the thing, we're all fine here. You know.
Mm-hmm. We're just using her for our means.
Yeah. So that's certainly it's clear that like they understand the Covenant are evil. I mean, they're definitely a messed up group.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, this is something like I think is explored in later novels and stuff, but like the UNSC being a bit morally gray instead of just the standard good guys
Mm-hmm.
is definitely seen in the novels more often than not. So I guess like that is something they want to try out, especially because you do get stuff like in like the first episode they're gonna kill Quan or whatever because like hey she won't go follow our narrative like that's why us Outer Rim worlds have to join with stick with the UNSC so that we don't get killed by aliens even though it is kind of a thing that she probably should do because
Oh, a smart, reasonable person.
yeah but she's very hang up like no I will avenge my father. My father wanted magical free, so therefore it must be free. It's a whole thing of like just showing the UNSC being more
Mm-hmm.
like humanity being more a bit divided, like still being sort of divided. When I think in the games they like not to say that the insurrection immediately stopped when the Covenant showed up, but it was very clear.
It was put on hold.
Yeah, that whole stuff was put on hold. It's like okay, we have an existential crisis of a coalition of aliens want to just eradicate the human race. Our problems don't matter anymore. Our infighting doesn't matter anymore. We have to, at least work together to like stop these guys. You know?
Yes.
So yeah, and I think what they wanted to do was like have it be more like I guess like the UNSC's not fully like humanity's not fully like together
Mm-hmm.
at this point of facing the Covenant threat. But I mean, yeah, there's that. I feel like at the end of the day, they wanted to like give Chief more of a character.
Which like would make sense for having if you had him react to something he didn't know about, right? But it's almost feels kind of pointless. Like there's no weight to his reaction to it. Well, he's upset, but there are moments where like he just kind of forgets.
It's not that he forgets. I think even in this episode, like Keys is like, "Hey, listen, I'm sorry. I'm sorry about everything." And Chief just straight up just goes, like, says, "There'll be a reckoning one day, but for now,
Mm-hmm.
stopping the Covenant is more important." Which, it's a logical thing for him to say because yeah, the Covenant are the bigger existential threat here.
Mm-hmm.
What you guys did is messed up and bad, but we'll get to it when all of this is over.
Yeah.
Which definitely just like it shows that the writers kind of get that like hey all this infighting stuff doesn't really matter because we have the Covenant. They're an existential threat. We gotta stop these guys. When what happens afterwards we'll figure it out. All right. So they kind of like you can kind of tell, and I think this is like the main issue with the show is like you can kind of tell they know there's hints of like they like of making this idea work well, but it just doesn't work. And like they're just various choices they make throughout it that are just make you go what and why, and that doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm. There is no causality to one's actions, right?
Yeah, I guess you could say that. Yeah.
There's no like it doesn't feel connected. It feels jumbled up, and I think part of that is and. Do you think it's because they didn't like look into like the lore?
it's weird. I don't want to say like they didn't because they clearly pull stuff from lore. Like Soren himself is like mainly a novel character,
Mm-hmm.
so it's not like they didn't probably look into the lore. And that's my thing, is that at least from what I understand, it's like they didn't play the games, but they like got caught up with some of the lore aspects of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
There's like little tiny details that like remind that tells you, oh no, they paid attention.
yeah, obviously, I think one of the scenes I mentioned that we talked about like in the earlier episodes or whatever was the scene where Halsey has John like flip the coin. He calls it right all the time. You know, that's a scene directly ripped from the Fall of Reach novel, where he meets him for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just like it's done pretty perfectly, more or less.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's like the exact same lines too from the novel, which clearly shows that they are taking stuff from like at least the expanded lore and all that stuff.
And the message still fell through when he does that, because like you were saying, it's like it shows like just John's luck factor.
Yeah, because like that's at least in the original games, that's why Cortana, because she wasn't like assigned to Master Chief. She more or less looked at all the Spartans and picked him to be like the Spartan to like
Mm-hmm.
be your power or whatever. And she straight up says, it's like it's just you're lucky. That's your it's the one thing that separates you, John. You're just lucky. And yeah, it's I don't know, it's a thing.
Mm-hmm.
For all that.
And okay, so obviously some decisions were made that were bad. Obviously stuff with like what's her name, Quan, Soren stuff. The storylines weren't that engaging.
I mean, Soren's a fine character. He's probably the most fun character just because
One of the most fun characters.
Yeah, because it feels like he's very much like, I'm not dealing with any of this bullshit that all the other characters deal with. Quan's character is definitely like, I don't know, like it feels like they wanted to like I don't know. She's just there. Like she really basically only serves as like set up for like later plot storyline, especially considering like, oh, your dad went to these fucking weird ladies in the desert and they told him some things, and that's why he's sort of very hell-bent on like freeing Magical, and that you realize it's because there's a magic portal there that must be protected, and you must protect it from, that's why Magical should be free, because you must protect this portal. And it's like, he will come for it one day, and it's like, Master Chief is going to go there. That's how they're going to get to Halo, because it's a magic portal or some bullshit. That's her only reason for being there. Yeah, and I'm going to be finding it very annoying if we continue to find in the next season just spend more time with her. Because if that's all that she's going to do, just hang out on Magical, leading like maybe a resistance or whatever just to protect the portal, we really don't need to see much of Quan until like, the UNA, Master Chief decides to show up, and she probably tells him, hey, there's a thing here. I trust you more than anyone else. And it's like, a thing. That's right. It's like a portal or something. It's like a portal. Okay, let's go in there. And I don't know, maybe that's how they'll resolve that conflict or whatever. But yeah,
Not looking forward to that.
yeah, I'm not looking for that.
I mean, another good thing I guess I would say was probably Kai's character. Kai's probably one of the best characters that we have in the show, and that's not saying much. And some people would say that's just this, and that, but really, she's the most engaging one, and she's probably the most fun one. She had like a whole like the moment like I like seeing her like realize what things are.
Yeah, like she's the one, like she like also takes out her emotional inhibitor chip thing or whatever in her body, so she also goes through some of the similar things that John is going through, but she takes it a bit differently.
Mm-hmm.
Like John seems to be more like very stressed and angry about things. She sort of like looks at the, I don't know, she has a bit more humor to herself, but also
she's so like wide eyed and like, what's the word I'm looking for? Whimsy.
Yeah, like not too whimsy, obviously.
No.
But she definitely seems to have.
She's intrigued by the world.
Yeah, she has more fun with stuff. Like,
yeah.
And obviously, there's a whole scene a couple episodes ago where she's just having these weightlifting competitions, showing off like just how strong a Spartan is. Mm-hmm. And she's like, "Come on, what else do you got for me?
Come on, guys. Come on. Hey.
and she's just having fun with all the soldiers. I mean, she has those bonding moments with Miranda, like helping her out with like the various stuff with the Covenant language and all that shit. And yeah, it's like, like she definitely has like that bits of personality. Like I think she more than anyone else out of this part that knows about what Halsey did is the one that's kind of more the most upset about it. Like her confrontation with Halsey on the ship is straight up just like, "What's my real name? Do I even have a real name? What is it?"
Which is weird.
Yeah, because it seems like John kept his real name, so
I'm pretty sure most of them kept their real names.
yeah, I'm pretty sure just to make things easy for them, But yeah,
but she's one of the more engaging characters. So that's why I'm not saying this is like a terrible adaptation. They do some stuff right, they do some interesting stuff, but it's like, but we don't go anywhere with anything that we're given with, Obviously, like we said earlier with the whole like Spartan 2 program, that's something that you can like, if you've never played the Halo games or even read the books, that's something you can latch onto and teaches you more about the world of Halo. Like we talked about, like what, like heck, how cool would it have been if like instead of like, during the interrogation with Halsey, some dude comes in and is like, "We'll be taking over for Halsey." "Who are you?" "Office of Naval Intelligence." And you're like, "Oh, I know what that is." You're bringing in the CIA version of
the Space CIA.
Yeah,
basically.
Space CIA.
That's because in the lore, that's like the Office of Naval Intelligence is kind of the main, like they're the ones that like had the Spartan 2 program commissioned and all that stuff. Which is, I mean, it's weird because it seems in this show like it's just one commander from the UNSC branch that like gives Halsey all these research and funding and stuff to like make her project go. So it is kind of sad like they don't include Oni, which is like what they're called a lot. Because in the games they're kind of a bit shadowy and they're not mentioned much, but you just see them as like, oh, it's just a secret CIA in space. But in the novels and various other expanded media, it's like, oh, they do a lot more messed up shit. So
they do some Iran Contra shit.
Yeah, there's like half of the reason of why there's still like a bit of a Covenant conflict in Halo 4 is because Oni straight up like has some of the remnants of the Covenant still be like basically terrorists like disrupting like the peace between like the other elites who are like friendly with humans in order to like as a way to protect humanity, being like, all right, as long as these aliens keep fighting each other, we'll be fine.
We'll be fine.
Yeah,
screw them.
Yeah, it's kind
of
like
it's never gonna bite us back before, right?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, that they don't include that because if they wanted to make the UNSC like seen it in the show as a bit more morally gray and willing to do a lot of messed up stuff, then a lot of the bad decisions or like really messed up decisions that happen could have easily just been like, oh, this is we're Oni, we'll handle it here, don't worry about it. All right.
Yeah, and I guess like I guess that's the only thing we can hope maybe in season 2 they go more into. We don't know how season 2 is going to go down. Maki. I'm surprised she lasted this long. Well, no, actually, no. I'm surprised she got kicked out so fast.
Yeah, like you feel like she's going to be set up because I think I said this the last time we talked about Halo on the show. That it feels like she was gonna be maybe set up as like this character of like, oh, it was gonna cause some conflict between her and John of like, I love you, but I must do what I must help, this is what I chose. And like, no, you still have a chance.
She clearly still loves John though.
Yeah, because there is like half the reason why she Aeon activates it is like as a way to like distract the Covenant in a way to let them not kill Master Chief. So I mean. Yeah, she clearly still has feelings, but yeah, she gets killed.
By Best-Girl.
I mean, again, that's a term.
That's a term.
I don't know. I mean, like what other female character is there?
It ain't Halsey.
Definitely not. I mean, Miranda is whatever, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, she's definitely like. I get what they wanted to do with her in a weird way.
Mm-hmm.
Like she definitely is probably the epitome of like the UNSV being kind of bad.
Yeah.
Um, but like I feel
There's
like they wanted to have her be. Again, it just feels weird because it feels like she was gonna be like this sort of like humanizing factor to the Covenant of like maybe this is how we'll see how the Covenant works on the inside, such and such. But she doesn't spend that much time with the Covenant.
No.
Because her whole thing is like trying to find the other artifact.
No, and that's sort of I think McKeezy, not to say nothing bad to the actor, nothing bad to any of the actors on this show. I think they do a good job with what they're given. Just that the storyline for McKee seems very like inconsequential because you're led to believe that she was meant to be this sort of like the human perspective of the Covenant, right? Like you said earlier, and yet the Covenant don't factor in at all.
Yeah, they don't really. Yeah, we don't get to see them a whole lot.
Like, you don't know who the prophets are unless you're someone like us who's played the games and or explored the lore. Right?
Yeah, they only mentioned their names a couple of times, so you'll probably forget them as well.
Because, man, they know distinction of color there.
Yeah, I mean, the seats have colors that would associate with the prophets of the games, but other than that, they don't have like the traditional headdresses and such and such. Yeah, it's just all kinds of. It's just again, it's a very bizarre choice of making.
And there's no character for us to latch on that's on the set Covenant side, right? Not like an Arbiter.
Well, yeah, I mean, granted, I feel like you don't have to have that because.
Well, not this soon.
Yeah, because the Arbiter was introduced in Halo 2, and that really gave us perspective. But if you wanted to I guess stick more to Halo 1 stuff, then yeah, have the Covenant being this existential crisis. Have them be sort of because again, there's moments where they do show the Covenant being pretty brutal. I mean, they go into the first episode, they just an elite just straight up just kills all these women and children in this hideout or whatever.
Yeah, he guns them down.
Yeah, and granted we don't see a full on glassing, but we see images of an aftermath of a glassing of a planet. So the Covenant are a threat, but the show seems more interested in the political squabblings within the UNSC rather than getting to see.
And here's the thing, you can do both. You can. But there's nothing for us to latch on to the political aspect of it to make us interested in the fact that, hey, yes, they've done this, but also we have to acknowledge the fact that there's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's certainly a weird thing because it feels like there's already there's multiple different plot points of political infighting or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Within the UNSC, obviously, insurrectionists.
I think there's too many.
Yeah, I feel like there might be the insurrection plotline with Quan and stuff. There's obviously the stuff between Halsey and her commanding officer, and heck, the commanding officer with the other officers kind of have a bit of a we don't really like you. It's that's not my fault. It's Halsey. I got this. Don't worry about it, kind of thing. And obviously the Spartans starting to lose faith with Halsey. All this stuff. It just it just feels like it's a bit too much, and it's
there's too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah, it's too much plot lines that are just making it sort of just what the hell are we watching?
Mm-hmm.
Not to say that a Halo show should just be all action or whatever.
No. But the if you're gonna do a story a political thriller, the politic has to be engaging, right? And when you have too many, and granted, in real life, there is a lot of politics, right? Where a lot of like infighting in groups and stuff like that, where you would see this and that, right? Like you can't listen. It's not my fault. It's the people. Um, a lot of it, but there's no build up or reason as to why there's so much issue. And like there's too many for us to care about, and none of them are executed in a way for us to really be engaged in, right? Because the Quan thing, I didn't. No one gave a fuck about the Quan storyline, and it's sad because like that could work, right? In theory, it could work, but like it was barely any point to it at all to the overall story.
Yeah, yeah, especially considering the fact that it feels like the story is a bit more engaging when you don't have Quan being like the side plot of an episode.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, it's just like again, I get what they wanted to do with Quan or whatever, but it just feels like again she's
Mm-hmm.
just there to be served as a plot point and not do much at all in the grand scheme of things.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like I think you could have, in theory, maybe done something with her that's a bit more interesting. And I think half of the reason why I think people don't care much about the Quan storyline is just because, in the grand scheme of things, Quan's whole arc of like, I want to, liberate magical such and such, and it's like a lot of the characters in the universe are like, we can't do that anymore.
Oh no, she got a lot of resistance.
Yeah, because and rightfully so, because a lot of them are like, hey, there's an existential crisis. Aliens killed your family, your dad, killed everyone you knew in that camp, and you're still on about wanting to liberate magical. We have bigger issues to deal with.
Her character arc was stuck for a good long while. There was nothing of her to learn, right? She didn't, improve. She didn't do anything. It wasn't until like an episode, but by then you're just still at the point where like, wait, so then what's the point?
Yeah, she just serves up to be like a plot point for like for the season 2, I guess.
And yeah, no, it's just so weird. Um, and so I guess that's something we can move on. We can move on to something else. How about something funny? The side scientist's death. That was the funniest thing ever.
I mean, yeah, he was always a bit of a weirdo. Like he has this weird like he's just a very weird guy.
I can't describe how weird he is.
Like I don't know
What was the point?
like I don't get why they made him that weird, because he has this weird fixation with Halsey's like clone they use before they make Cortana.
He almost made out with her.
Yeah, it's just like, what is up with this guy? Like
He's very like.
is this supposed to say something about like scientists, or is this just like they wanted to have a weird character to have a weird character? Like I don't know.
Was it supposed to like make you feel unsettling because this is the way Halsey works? Because I don't think I need that.
Yeah, I just
Just her actions speak volumes to that, and it's so weird. But I was so glad. Nothing against the actor. I blame the writing. But like the moment he died, I was like, oh, thank God, he's gone. And they even treated his body like shit, which I thought was kind of funny.
well, I mean,
Well, they did not really like shit, but you know what I mean.
yeah, you just see the dead body flailing around when the ship is crashing. So I mean, yeah, it is kind of funny.
Commitment, the props to the actor. Good job, man. Good job. You did a good job. But aside from that, like I can't think of anything else to say. I guess have we said anything positive?
I think we have. I mean, I've said some positive things. I.e., the Covenant seem, whenever they are on screen, they seem to be a viable threat.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, yeah, they some of the grunts are cannon fodder, obviously, but they do seem to be acting out like the Covenant should act out for the most part within a Halo story. The visuals can be hit and miss, but when they are good, they're really good, especially with the Prophets and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like I said, like there's a lot of. I feel like it's more like there's a lot of potential for this show.
Oh no, yeah, I think that's my general statement for this show. It's a very like missed opportunity kind of thing where nothing is very much explored, but they have the makings of something that could be good, and it's sad to see that it doesn't execute them so well. Um, the actor who played Pablo Schreiber, the guy who plays Chief, when he's has everything on, helmet and suit, dude looks like it. He acts like it. He moves like Chief.
Yeah,
Like I could see why. Like that first episode with him walking around, with him being in suit, I was like, I can dig this. I can dig this. Why'd you move your helmet though?
yeah. I mean, that is definitely one of those things. I feel like a lot of people are probably hung up about it way too much. I mean, it's definitely. I think I said this before. Like, I'm okay with them, like, like removing the helmet for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that it needs to be executed. Like, it has to be a solid reason for it. Like in Mandalorian,
Mm-hmm.
Mando doesn't take off his helmet because it's Creed, unless it's very specific moments where he has to.
Mm-hmm.
And it should have been something similar with Chief, where he's all business. He just puts on the helmet whenever he wants, all the time, such and such.
He only takes it off in front of his fellow Spartans.
Or for a specific reason, i.e., like in the first episode, he takes it off just to gain Quan's trust, which I thought was a great reason to get his helmet off. But then he keeps it off for like a majority of that time.
And then he keeps the suit off for a majority of the time.
Yeah, it's just
because it doesn't feel Halo without that. Is an iconic look, right?
And I feel like there's a reason why a lot of the marketing for this show definitely just has Chief in his suit, because that is Master Chief, that is Halo. So it seems like the marketing team understands that, but the writers seem to like not really care as much.
And I guess the whole point of John's story arc was just like the human or the man or the machine, which why I think kind of ends the way it does with Chief, with like Cortana fully taking over his body, and him. I didn't say this when you were talking about it, but he acts very much like Chief in the mannerisms and in the movement and everything else.
I feel like he acts like what people think Chief acts like.
Yeah.
Just a silent walking death machine.
Yeah.
That like just does all these things without question.
And that's not who Chief is, though.
Yeah, because even in like, I feel like that's what people think Chief is, but like even in the games, he does have a bit of personality. But he's mostly just business, kind of in a sense. He's all about like following his orders.
There's a reason why Cortana and him flow well so together, because the way they talk back to each other.
Yeah, like Cortana is more of like, I mean, it's an obvious contrast between them. Like Cortana is an AI, but she has way more human emotions or like human personalities than Master Chief, who is a human, but it's sort of like
more robotic.
More robotic, more of like doing such and such things. But that's how they bounce off each other well.
But and also the fact that Chief is someone who cares about his fellow soldiers. He's always respectful, unless pushed. Remember Del Rio?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was like, "No, sir, I'm not following that order." And he's like, "You surrender to AI."
It's like, no, you're right. There's, I gotta stop the didact, and if you guys aren't willing to help, I gotta do it myself.
Yeah, and also the fact that Halo 4 is basically just probably the most emotional he's been.
I mean, yeah, because that whole plot point is Cortana going through rampancy, which, if you don't know, in the lore, AI is like Cortana only lasts for like 7 years. And
she dying.
Yeah, and it's like it's a slow death for them. So Chief's pretty much like, I'm not gonna lose you. We're gonna get back to Earth. We're gonna find Halsey. She's gonna fix you up. We're doing. I ain't losing you. And that's sort of the emotional questions of Halo 4. But yeah, it's just, again, like there's a lot of things that can be liked about this show, I feel, and I don't think it's like the worst thing I've ever seen in my life.
No, No, I agree.
There's probably a lot worse video game adaptations out there. And I guess when the bar is so low that people love the first Sonic movie, even though it's just a standard generic buddy road trip movie, but with Sonic, and the only reason people love it is just because the fanboys bullied the Paramount to change Sonic's design and to be more like accurate.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, if that's the bar of like good video game adaptations, then Halo is just below it, I feel.
Fair enough. I mean, I get what you're saying. But at the same time, I would say at least Sonic had a more engaging story. What, of it being simple?
Yeah, I guess it's simple enough. And I guess to be fair, with Sonic lore, it's so, I guess, inconsistent
Yeah.
that like you could just get away with doing that because it's like, you know,
People have different interpretations.
Yeah, people have their people have different interpretations of how Sonic lore should be. Obviously, there's like the first games on the Genesis, but then you have Avenger 1 and Adventure 2, which don't feel like they're a part of that series of games. They're their own separate thing. Then there's, like, you can put Sonic into anything, and it seems like it kind of works. I mean, hell, they fucking made him into a fucking werehog, and they put him in with King Arthur and shit, so...
That was weird.
Yeah, Sonic goes through weird stuff, so...
Well, not just that, even the cartoons in the US, you had you had like two versions going on, and you had the one that we grew up with the Sonic Underground, with his brothers and sister,
which I mean are never mentioned in any other media, because that just
except for maybe the comics.
Aside from maybe the comics,
and in the comics are different and stuff like that. And because what was that girl? What was his Sonic's girlfriend's name? That is not Amy, the other chick.
Sandy.
I guess her name is Sandy.
I don't know.
She's like a chipmunk looking girl.
She's like, I don't know, something like that.
Besides the point, they had some freedom to do, right?
Yeah.
Here not so much. You cleared it because there is like an established thing where it's kind of hard for us not to immediately compare, But it's not the worst thing I've seen. I've seen worse. I mean, it didn't hurt my brain like a Cowboy Bebop, the live action version did. That I'm glad I never showed you that.
I didn't want to look at that, honestly. Yeah, like at the end of the day, I feel like there was a lot of wasted potential with this show, and I think that's sort of my main takeaway is that there's a lot of wasted potential. Like there's a lot of things you can do with Halo as a property, and I mean I was more or less fine with them being like, oh, it's gonna be different from the Halo lore. It's gonna be essentially like its own thing, which I'm fine with. Yeah, I know some hardcore fans would be like, it's bullshit, blah blah blah, but I'm like, it's an adaptation. Let them like do their own thing, so that way, I don't know. It's easier for you to just ignore it, because in your mind you can just consider it non-canon, right? If it's gonna be
technically it is non-canon.
Yeah, it's in its own separate timeline or whatever that E3 wants to use as an excuse. But yeah, it's very much for me. It's very much like I'm fine with them for like, I guess, trying to like make a different thing or whatever. But with the various possibilities that you can do in a Halo show, they kind of go very, like, I don't know, they go in a very sort of scattered brain direction of like trying to do a lot of things but not executing a lot of them great. Like they want to do all these things and have the show be super, I guess, interesting or engaging, but half of the stuff they do either doesn't work or kind of works, and like you're just left with like, why are we doing this? So yeah, that's, I guess for me, that's sort of my thoughts on the Halo series as a whole, is that it's kind of wasted potential. I mean, I'm wondering how a season 2 will look like,
And honestly, I think the best way to end this episode is just talk about what they could do, right? Because I don't want to end it in such a negative way and just say, fuck the writers, all that shit. Because I feel like you can come back from this, right? You can come back and make something great out of this. I don't agree with like just purely negative criticism because if there's good, because there's always something good. If it's bad, then yeah, it's bad. There's nothing you can do about it. Just gotta go with it and just move on to something else. But if there's a potential for it to be better, like this show does have the potential to be better, I think it's best to talk about how to be better, right? And I think part of it is just having just a more consistent story, right? Now that Chief may or not be gone, maybe you want to explore that. I don't know how you're gonna explore that, but I think maybe having him like coming back from it, maybe still being alive, and sort of deal with the fact that there's this problem. We find out about the Forerunners, well, Forerunner artifacts, and then we can probably more see more aspects of the Covenant, right? Because even if we don't see much of the Covenant, I think looking into the Covenant and what they're all about, maybe we can understand more. Because if you don't understand why the Covenant is hell bent on killing humans, and the kind of irony that that it has for that it is for them to kill humans, I think if you explore that angle, I think it would be really interesting to see.
Yeah, I think there is a lot of ways to like I guess fixing Halo the series.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly it is just streamlining the story more or less. Like like if you wanted it to be like this show about like finding these artifacts, then make it like a bit of an adventure story where they have to find these artifacts before the Covenant do. You
Mm-hmm.
know, not necessarily have it be like episodic or whatever, but just have them like going through doing various missions and stuff. And yeah, like maybe do explore like a bit of the Covenant, society and stuff. Maybe we just went through,
And if not, have them be more of a prevalent threat.
yeah, like have them show up more often.
Mm-hmm.
Like have them actually be like this like ever present like existential threat to humanity instead of just only showing up when they sort of feel like there needs to be a big action scene.
Mm-hmm.
Because hey, it's been a while since we had one of those. You know,
Throw in an elite here and there.
yeah, like it's I don't know it. Also, I guess I mean like with the Quan storyline, clearly I feel like it's run its course at this point. I don't think she has anything else to do except I don't know hang out on Madrigal for a while. Definitely seems like that's what she's gonna do. So maybe only bring her up when you absolutely need her at this point,
Mm-hmm.
i.e., when they're like, "Hey, we need to get to Halo or whatever," and it's like, "I got the portal, I got everything you need." Um, as for the Halsey plotline, I mean, it's definitely going to be, I guess, interesting to see what happens with that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, maybe she'll be like the character that like goes to the Covenant to try to find Halo.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is something that has happened in the games, but for different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I don't know, maybe because like if she's so like hellbent on finding Halo and seeing it as a way to like advance human evolution and stuff, like maybe that's her way in because obviously at this point she doesn't have the resources to find Halo because she doesn't have Chief with her. McKee is dead. So, so she just has no way of like getting to it without having to do some trickery. Um, but yeah, I think streamlining a bit of the plot, um, have the Covenant be more of a presence in the show, even if you have to do stuff like I don't know, like have a elite point of view character or something like that for the Covenant for us to at least understand why are they doing the things they do instead of just being like generic evil aliens. Um, yeah, I think that's really all you can do. The Chief's plot line definitely seems like it's either gonna be something that's gonna last for maybe an episode or two, or like they spend the whole season trying to get Chief back.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
And who knows? Maybe we'll do something with the rest. But and like you could make them like short story arcs, really, and then like culminate to one big one, I guess, or just make it just complete nothing but short story arcs. Like imagine if like Chief and the Silver Team crew having to help evacuees from a glassing. How insane would that be?
Yeah.
So like I don't think this is a terrible show. I think there's potential for it to be better, and I think there is potential for it to, make it out of being such maybe a crappy show and to be better. There's always an opportunity. Heck, there are shows where like this kind of sucks, and then like you come back and it's like, but the writers come back do better, and they're like, oh no, this is actually a really good show. It just had a really shitty start.
I mean, yeah, I think that can happen sometimes. Like not everything's gonna be like a season 1 Game of Thrones where it all hits well.
Or season 1 of anything.
I mean, yeah, sometimes like you're like, it's like, I guess I think the point, I guess what I'm trying to make is that like, as long as a show is willing to get those extra seasons and the writers are willing to learn from their mistakes and improve the story, then you can get a good show out of it. Much like how a good show can turn bad just because of one season.
And yeah, so just a good show can turn good, and a bad show can turn a good show can turn bad, and a bad show can turn good. And sometimes it just needs the right amount of people. Like, I'm gonna throw this out there, Joey. You know this. Always Sunny didn't start off so good.
Well, I would say that It's Always Sunny didn't reach its peak until later seasons, I feel. I'm not saying that like It's Always Sunny. I mean, this is comparing a comedy show to a narrative story, first of all. But more to the point, I think the first season of Sunny can be a little rough on the edges. But it's not until you get to the second season when they introduce Danny DeVito's character and various other things. Like, I feel like most people would say that the first season isn't their favorite season, but it's a good starting point. And then when they add more to the various characters and the scenarios they go through, then you're like, I like the show, And if we're just gonna go through the aspect of, hey, this first season can be a little bit rough on the edges, but overall have a decent idea, and the writers, God willing, if they're willing to try and actually make a better story with the story they already have, then and improve on various aspects, then we can get a further better story. It's just obviously the question is, will the writers for the Halo show and the showrunners and stuff be willing to listen to all these critiques and be like, okay, I think we know we went wrong here. Let's try to improve for the second season, But yeah, it's that's kind of
it's hopeful. It's hope. There's hope. Anyways, guys, it's the end of the episode. Thank you for checking us out. What do you give it, Joey?
I give this show like a 6 out of 10.
I'm surprised we are in agreement. Yeah, 6 out of 10 for me. If you guys like what you heard, be sure to follow us on all social forms of social media: Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. I think Geek Centurions, we're most active on our Instagram. And if you're on there, there's a link tree to all the podcasts and sets we're officially part of, like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, all that good stuff. Be sure to, follow us there, rate us and all that good stuff. Link to the YouTube for all your audio listeners out there who want to put a face to the voice. We're there. Likes, comments, subscribe, all that good stuff. And we do have a link to the Patreon where you can support us any form of way. We'll take any donations, any form of help is fine. And that's the end of season 1 of Halo. And it hurts. It hurts a bit.
I feel like a disappointed father, just seeing like coming home and realizing your son just sort of like
drew on the wall.
Just like took this, your walls and just absolutely messed up everything. But you kind of see a bit of Picasso in him. It's like, that actually looks kind of neat. I'm just disappointed you had to do this on my wall and on a sheet of paper, But yeah,
Yeah, no, I getcha. Yeah, I getcha. It's one of those things where you look at it like, oh my god, this is some shitty artwork. But oh wait, there's actually attention to detail. I never noticed. Oh, this ain't that bad, but the end product doesn't look that good.
yeah. I guess more. I guess probably maybe another solid comparison is I don't know. It's like we're so close to maybe getting something good out of this, but then you just fumble it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
Yeah. Anyways, guys, have a good one. It's me, your boy Eli.
give me Joe.
You guys have a good one. Peace.